Hello, strong siders. Today we're talking about some hip stability, some stuff you can do for prehab to prevent any issues in and around the hips. Made this series for something that you can do at home in conjunction with the rest of your workouts. So I'm starting off with just basic glute bridges here, really trying to get my glutes to fire, driving my hips up, making sure I'm not arching my lower back in the process. You'll want to feel in the glutes. If you're not, adjust a little bit, find those glutes. Next, we're going to do hip flexor pull-ins with a hold. This is going to activate your psoas muscle along with the other hip flexors. You're going to want to draw the knee in, hold for about 3 seconds, and then reach the leg back out. Sometimes people will get a clicking sensation when they reach the leg back out. This could be because the hip flexors don't want to lengthen, so it could be trying to rotate your hip with it, making your SI joint click, or maybe your spine rotates a little bit. So you can actually just put the foot down with the knee still bent and then reach it long afterwards. Just basically shortens the lever a little bit, so there's not as much stress when you're reaching the leg back out. Be sure to brace your core as you go to draw the leg in to prevent your lower back from arching away from the ground. You can do this by breathing out a little bit hard, and that should activate your TVA, or you can try to draw your belly button towards the spine. Let's work the legs individually next. First, we're going to do what's called donkey kicks. I'm going to be drawing my heel up into the air, activating my glute. It's really important to not change the shape of your spine during this movement. You want to try to draw the abs in, kind of like you're doing a plank, and really feel out if your hips are trying to tilt during this exercise. Keep reaching the heel up. Your leg might try to deviate off to one side or across the other one. Try to draw it straight up and back. You'll be surprised at how short of range of motion you actually have in this drill. Kind of lets you know that maybe when you're walking or running, you might actually be tilting the hips back and forth, mobilizing your spine on every step. So this is a great drill to do before you go for runs to help protect the back and make sure the glutes are firing during it. If you want to mimic running or walking, at least the stability in the core during these actions, you can alternate sides back and forth, forcing the core to switch how it's going to stabilize to keep your back from moving. Follow this up with lunge switching, which it draws the leg forward using the hip flexors and the abductors to get the foot by your hands into a deep lunge position. Then do a thoracic twist, opening up towards that front leg, getting the T-spine or thoracic spine, get a nice rotation in it as well. Try not to over pull with your arm. Think about rotating your collarbones up towards the ceiling. This drill can be made easier by putting your knee on the ground in an actual lunge position instead of holding the leg up off the ground. We're going to look at rotation in the hip next. So I'm laying on the ground with my feet flat on top of each other. The base of my feet are in line with my spine, and I have a band around my knees. So we're going to be doing external rotations of the hip. This drill is called Clam Shells. It's a fairly easy drill. You don't even need a band to get a good activation, but you're going to want to up the number of repetitions you're going to do if you're not using a band. If you're trying to get some strength in this area, you can definitely use a much heavier band and do fewer reps. I'm using a moderate band here, so working in between 10 and 20 reps will work. Make this drill more difficult by going up into a side plank from the knees. After you've done both sides of your external rotators in the clamshell position, let's move the band down to our ankles and pass a foam roller between the feet and the knees. Next, pinch the foam roller with your knees while you rotate internally at the hips, pulling the feet away from the foam roller. Same rules for the clamshell. If you want to work strength, use a heavier band. I suggest though, picking a band that you still have your full range of motion in. If you start going way too heavy and you're only moving your feet away maybe an inch or so, it might not be enough range of motion to fully activate that muscle through its entire range. For this next drill, you can use pretty much any implement you want. We're just going to be activating the adductors in an isometric contraction. I'm going to use a basketball at first with my hips flexed. The ball is between my knees. I slowly squeeze on, increasing the pressure over time. I'm going to hold for about 10 to 15 seconds, release, and repeat the squeeze. Again, start really slow. It's quite normal to get a couple little clicks in around the hips while you're doing this drill. As I said before, you can use anything to squeeze in between your knees. Just make sure it's something that's non-compressible so you don't crush it. So you can also use a foam roller. I use the basketball. It doesn't really matter what you use. Just know that different widths of things are going to feel very different. So you can try doing one where your knees are really wide apart or another one where your knees are nice and narrow. After doing the adductor squeezes with a bent hip, we're going to reach our legs long and straight in an extended position and squeeze the ball between our feet now. This is going to probably be a bit more of a weaker position for you. Make sure you're bracing the core while you're squeezing, and again, start with a slow pressure, increasing over the 10 seconds that you're doing the exercise. Let's finish up this hip series with the last movement we haven't done for the hip, which is abduction. That's abducting the leg away from the midline. So have the bottom leg bent at 90 degrees with the knee at 90 degrees. Your top leg is going to be angled forward slightly at 45 degrees while you laterally lift it up. Try not to point the toe up in the air. You want to keep the foot nice and level. After you've done those, immediately extend the hip with the knee bent and do the same abduction exercise, pulling up and down, up and down. When you're done with those ones, we're going to draw the knee forward into flexion. So the hip is now in flexion as opposed to extension where it just was, and we're going to go up and down there. So we just did 3 different positions: fully extended, 45 degrees of flexion, and now 90 degrees of flexion for the abduction. Try doing between 10 and 20 repetitions of each of these exercises for 2 sets a couple times a week, and enjoy the healthier hips. As always, stay strong, Strong Siders. Till next week.